Yeah.
And I kind of lost touch for a
Yeah.
little while with the whole teaching of the now, or
Yeah.
not ever leaving the now. And so I'm at a point now is how is all this applicable to daily living? Just
Yeah.
assume that it's all just happening.
Yeah.
I heard you telling the other gentleman, he was saying something about absolute freedom is to know that something beyond my knowing exists
Yeah.
on the ultimate level,
Yeah.
and life is giving, and one believes in goodness. That's what manifests. But then I'm also thinking there's the opposite. I mean, even if I think all positive and want good things to happen, which has, it seems like the opposite is part of life,
Yeah. Yeah,
for lack
that's
of better.
that's true. Like with growth there comes destruction. So that's it.
Hmm.
That has to be the way it is. So, when a flower grows, it has to take nutrients from the
Hmm.
soil, and then the soil has taken those nutrients from a dying flower, a dying animal, poop, like so all different types of things that are in decay. So
Hmm.
and so that is the way. Like it has this circular nature to it. So
So
I
no
think
matter positive, I might, or that, like the gentleman mentioned, the law of
yeah,
attraction and or God, it, etc. There's always going to be a, lack of a better way of saying, a negative, correct? It's like a circle.
yeah. It also depends on the way that you see things. So I'm a fan of the law of attraction, and I think it can be super helpful for people on their path. I also think that if you believe in it too much, it can become very dogmatic. So if you like, this is the only way, it can become like another cage. The same with most
Right,
beliefs, um,
right.
and and it depends on like what it is that you think is good and bad. So Ramana Maharshi, he lived a very simple life out of a cave, meditating and walking. I believe he used to beg for food. So he lived a very simple life. And
Mm-hmm.
some people that are studying law of attraction, they might think that they might put their desire on lots of money and a big house. That's often what people put their desire on, and they think that that will be freeing, and that's what they want, and maybe being successful in their work.
Mm-hmm.
But really, all we can do is be true
Mm-hmm.
to our heart in that moment of what it is that our heart is asking for, and then let
Mm-hmm.
life deliver. And I think that's the true law of attraction. So like knowing the results is beside the fact of what happens. So you put the desire out for this massive house and marriage and success, and then if you're delivered a turnip and a divorce and living a homeless life, like that is perfection. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's bad,
Mm-hmm.
because I can also see how being a homeless wanderer could have beauty in it, because it's a very simple life. It's not in our societies, it's considered the worst thing there is. But in India, there's many sadhus and spiritual people that do this. Like the Buddha is maybe the most famous. Like he just used to walk around India, and his home was outside wherever he was, even in monsoon. I don't even think he would accept accommodation inside, even in monsoon. So we really
Mm-hmm.
don't know what is good and bad and what is negative and positive. These are our words. So
No, obviously he didn't. Well, I'm not going to say he didn't have a family, but I guess it, like you said, it depends on the person and the
yeah,
situation.
yeah. The Buddha did have a
Yeah.
family.
So
He
what,
had
he
it.
just to
He had a
leave the and become homeless, or
he left
to
his family.
have
Yeah,
a family?
it's a really harsh story actually. He had a beautiful wife and a young child. He was a prince, and
Hmm.
at the age of 29, he left them. I'm not suggesting people do that. Like, I'm not suggesting that's the ethical or
Right.
nice thing to do. Eventually, they became, his wife became, and his son became his student, and were homeless wanderers with him as well.
Wow.
Like, so it's quite a like, like a full, like a big story. Like there always are all these different teachings. But
Hmm.
in the end, we don't know what good and bad is. Like in the
Okay.
end, we don't like. To me, what the law of attraction is about for me, which is maybe vibrantly different from what other people describe, is putting your attention in what your heart wants on the positive. So it's not you not going too much into the negative. So you allow the negative to come when it comes and you explore it and you see what it is there. And then underneath that, you'll see there is a desire which is positive and which is like your innate. So you have this desire come into life. So I'll give you an example. So say you have this desire to speak, and to have your opinion heard. And that's your
Hmm.
natural desire. Like it comes into existence. But then it goes through the filter of you, and the filter might say you're not allowed to speak because maybe you grew up in a household where your opinion was discouraged. So it goes through this filter of you're not allowed to speak, and maybe another filter of you're not good enough to speak, and then another filter that nobody will listen to you, and then
Right.
another filter of you're not worthy to be heard. And those
Mm.
thoughts are very contracting. So they will
Mm.
contract more than likely in your heart chakra. So it will be this pain in your heart chakra. So
Mm.
when the urge comes to express yourself, these thoughts will quickly happen and close down your heart. So my
Mhm.
recommendation for it would be to go to the source of that feeling. And then maybe on the surface, you're saying how other people talk too much and other people don't listen. But actually, the source of your feeling is that you don't feel that you can express yourself. And then underneath that, there is a positive desire that wants to express itself.
Mhm.
And that's your innate, original desire.
Mhm.
And it's got beautiful feelings in it. And what the law of attraction to me is that you connect with those innate desires and then you put them out into life. And that might look like you becoming a nun and never saying a word again in your life. We don't know what that will look like. It might end up you being like a world famous public speaker. And
Mhm.
and this is what law of attraction is to me. And the results of you connecting to your true desires are beside the fact.
Mhm.
They are as they are. And they will do what they need to do. If a lesson needs to be taught, then a lesson will be taught. If a
Mhm.
surrender needs to happen, a surrender will happen. So that's to me what the law of attraction is. It's connecting to that positive feeling, and it is a positive feeling, our initial desires. It's just they
Mhm.
go through all these conditioned responses.
Mhm.
But then I feel like you asked me another question: is how to put this into practical everyday living, and often it's that life is so full on sometimes, and it can produce so many different things. Like a
Mhm.
couple of years back, I went through a very intense time. I all things arose at once, and I wouldn't say that this is law of attraction or not. I'd say it's the perfect appearance of what happens. So my
Mhm.
dad got diagnosed with terminal cancer. I bought a house to renovate in the south of France. My dad lived in London, and then also I fell in love. So all these three happened in exactly the same month. And the next 10 months was so chaotic, like renovating a house. Oh, and then
Mhm.
also at the same time, I also moved my taxes to France as well, which was more complicated than I anticipated. So these 4 very big things in life. And then
Right.
also 5 was moving house. I bought a house, so I also had to move house as well. And 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 that's a very chaotic, and that happens to people all the time. That's one of the most chaotic periods I've ever had in my life. Like, it was a lot going on. But sometimes this happens to people regularly. You know, they have maybe big families, and there's lots of chaos that goes on. And so what I feel like you were saying is, in these scenarios when life is really intense, you know, how do we use this practically? And my best advice in that situation is to try to be as present as you can. So not letting your mind go off into too much mental abstractions about what's happening. Like, in the end, we don't know what's happening. We don't know why things are occurring, and you just are dealing with everything in the moment, bit by bit. So, you know, if there's like an intensity, or the builders don't show up, or they need paying and you're in England, or whatever the complications are, you just are really present to that.
Right.
So that in the human world, like taking away non-duality, taking away the idea of enlightenment, like this is a practical advice for daily living, is trying to stay present to what's actually happening rather than going off into too mental abstractions. If you find it becomes too painful and that you can't do that, then doing emotional releases. So if you have time to try to emotionally release the tension out of your body, which you could do through yoga, you could also do it through massage, can help you. And then you can also do it through the process of what I've taught about going into the chakras and seeing what the initial desire is as well.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers more your question.
Yeah, well, it did. It did. It gave me some instruction to, you used some pretty good examples. That's when we kind of lost touch. But seemingly you were going through a lot as I was going through a lot, because moving and all of that was very, and now here it comes around again. Uh, I may have to make a decision to take on one of my grandchildren, and one of my sons is dealing with health issues. And even though I try to be in the present, and I heard a gentleman, Paul Hederman, say, "You're never out of the present."
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's the absolute teaching, which is really beautiful as well, is that you can't, it doesn't leave you, you know. There can be this recognition where you see that you're always embraced in the present. But on the human level, when your mind is making life very difficult for you through lots of worry or anxiety or blame or guilt and all those types of things, moving your attention from the thinking back to the present moment can be a lot more relaxing and a lot more helpful to deal with these complex situations. But then there can be this other knowing that you are always in love, that love is here in the present moment. So these are like two different answers. Like, I'm answering you on the human level of how to make things easier for you, but then on the absolute level, where you can see that there is no person that I can prescribe to, there is no person that can make their life better, and that you always are in the present moment.
And the present, you use the word love, would that be considered the same as source?
Yeah, the source. Yeah, the now, this moment, consciousness, whatever, God, the divine, like, it's always here. Like, you've never experienced not being in the now.
Right.
You've always been here. And the same with consciousness. You've never experienced life without consciousness or the sense of being. These are all fundamentals. They're all the same thing, actually, just put in different ways. And this is who you truly are. What happens is there is an identification with the person, and this is when it becomes this big suffering load, is that you only know yourself as a person, as something that's separate and small, and then you're always trying to find relief in that person, in time. Whereas there is this other world, which is timeless, that's happening right here, It's not even other
Right.
world, but this other thing that's happening that's right here that is inherently free. But the
Right.
person is always looking in itself, but that's okay. And I also think the technique of putting yourself into presence can help you in times of struggle, of emotional relief, can help you in times of struggle. But then there is this deeper part to non-duality where you're always in love, you're always in non-duality, you never left it, you can never leave it.
Beautiful.
Oh, yeah, it is beautiful. I always feel like I'm saying that what I say is beautiful, but I actually feel it's the message that's beautiful, and I feel like that's really not down to me.
Then trying to okay, and me trying, well, how do I put it? Acknowledging that I'm always in the presence. I'm never out of the
Yeah,
present. But still, you got to deal with people around you. I have family,
yeah,
you
people
know,
are
that,
complex. Ramesh Balsekar, a teacher that I used to visit a lot in India, he always used to say that all problems come from relationships. I mean, if you really think of that in a way, like relationship is separation, the belief that you're a subject in relationship to an object. But I think he
Mhm,
also meant it on the personal level, like relating with people is a very complex dynamic.
mhm,
It is complex, like to be authentic, to be true to yourself, to also be
mhm.
unconscious of yourself and your dynamics, and then also to be interacting with another person that's trying to be authentic and honest, but also unconscious of their dynamics. It is complex.
Right,
Like these two
right.
stories,
Because
like
they're
like
being
often
true to
people,
themselves. I'm just being true to myself.
yeah,
Their truth might be,
yeah,
saying whatever, and it seems harsh to me, but
yeah,
that's their truth. So it does get complicated.
totally, yeah, yeah. And often the conscious mind is not telling, it's not conscious. The conscious mind doesn't know the subconscious, and we're often acting from the subconscious. Like, so
Hmm.
most of our actions are from the subconscious, and the conscious mind doesn't know about that. The conscious mind knows, is telling stories which make you feel safe, even though they often don't because they're fearful. But it's telling stories that make you feel safe, and it's trying to protect you. So it's often not interested in truth or authenticity or reality of what's actually happening. It's telling stories that are trying to make you feel better, feel safe, and to protect you. So it is complex interacting with people because rarely are people conscious of what's happening in themselves.
So, in other words, I'm just trying to understand. Sometimes I might be thinking I'm speaking my truth, but it's not really my truth. It's
You,
something, a strategy of
yeah,
making myself feel good.
yeah, it could be, but it could be your truth. Like, and like it's unknowable in a way. Like this all becomes very complex. This is why in a lot of families, and in relationships, it's good to work with a psychologist. When you've got really complicated dynamics in your family, because it's hard to navigate through it without an objective outsider helping. A lot of people feel like they have a lot of like bad associations with psychologists, but sometimes they can be really helpful in family dynamics. And people sometimes don't want to let go of their ideas or let go of their strategies. But it is
But they can
complex.
also be very expensive,
Yeah,
Lisa.
they can be really expensive as well. Sometimes in some countries you can get it through the government, like the
Mhm.
government healthcare system, but I don't know in America if you can through your healthcare
That girl
system.
with all,
I don't, in the end, ideas are just ideas and they constantly evolve and change, but I I have a tendency towards law of attraction.
Mhm.
The question is who is this I that's attracting it
Mhm.
into your world? So
Right.
I think I feel the law of attraction in a lot more complex way than what it's traditionally taught. That could sound really arrogant, but I don't see law of attraction as a personal thing. I see it as impersonal.
Mhm.
So I see each human as vibrations of energy that doesn't belong to that person. It just, at that time, the
Mhm.
energy force is bringing that collection of information together. This sounds so complicated. So, and whatever that energy is vibrating, it will vibrate with energy at a similar level, but it's absolutely impersonal. So it's kind of like, I see society and human society as a vibration of the collective mindset of humanity. So it's an impersonal thing, but we think that you're vibrating a certain energy and you're bringing that energy towards you. But I think of it as you're not separate from all other humans that are around you. Like, your behavior is dependent on other people that are around you. So I see it more as like one movement of energy, and it's all vibrating in a particular way together. So I do believe that like attracts like, but whose like is it? Whose conditions is it? Whose thoughts are they? Like, where is the beginning of you and the end of you?
True. There's something to think about.
Yeah, so I see it in a bigger perspective than sometimes in the law of attraction. It's like, if bad things happen to you, it's because of you and it's your fault. And you've attracted it to yourself. And I think that that's quite a narrow way to perceive it. I think in the beginning, when you're learning it, that's an easy way to perceive it. But then I think as you get to know it more, you begin to see it in a bigger perspective.
And you kind of sum it up a lot of times by simply saying, it's all just happening.
Yeah. It's all happening. That's beautiful, yeah. I'm getting really complicated, and then that is like the best teaching there is. It's all happening.
It's all just happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so
thank you for
much.
calling, Jackie.
And
Really beautiful.
If you can, because what I was getting was that there was no response from Lisa, so there wasn't any way for me to react to or respond to a message because you weren't messaging me back. But I still, do the crystals, etc. And I certainly would love to.
Oh, that's sweet.
As I
Thank you.
had promised before, but because of all the mix-up, and that now you said you moved and everything, maybe it was best I didn't send it because it probably got lost in the mail. But I still would love to gift you with some of my jewelry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Jackie. That's really beautiful. Yeah, and message me afterwards, and then we can sort that out.
Okay, sweetie.
Nice. Thanks a lot for calling. Bye.
Bye. Okay.
Nice.